the battle for the soul of the vehicle title.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to the battle for the soul of the vehicle title, the battle that we are all in, whether we know it or not. I'm going to attempt to do three things in this talk. One, I'm going to talk about why I think the use case of putting vehicle titles on-chain as RWAs is critically important, one for us to undertake and fully realize. I'm going to also talk about our approach to solving this problem, as well as our approach to getting this technology into state governments around the US. And I'm going to finish off with sort of a bit of a call to action on the importance of this and what you can do to make this actually happen. So very quickly about me, I'm Shahar Abrams. I have a background in federal IT consulting. So I worked for IBM for 7 years and worked with a lot of government clients, building IT systems for them. And I sort of saw firsthand how shitty and broken it is. And so that kind of led me to co-found Cario in 2022. So let's talk about the problem. And it's very simple, okay? Vehicle titles and the whole titling process are paper. Okay, and they have been paper for at least the last 75 years. You see here a title, a California title from 1956. Even before that, back to the 1920s, they were putting vehicle ownership on, it was like a bill of sale, but it was still paper, right? So almost 100 years, right, we are still recording our critical right to the ownership of the vehicle on a piece of paper. And what that means is that the entire automotive industry has to manage down to this piece of paper. So if you're a dealer, you can't legally sell a vehicle until you have that piece of paper title on it. That means you're reliant on UPS, FedEx, and the Postal Service. Okay, you literally have to get that title in the mail. If you're a lender who finances vehicles, you literally have filing cabinets full of titles and a fire suppression system and the whole 9 yards. Okay, and then for all of us, we have to take this paper into the DMV to get our car titled. Kind of silly, right? So by changing the paper process, we can introduce massive efficiency to the entire automotive industry. So I want to talk about specifically this as a Web3 use case, okay? And there are a few things I want to mention. So one is property rights. I think that property rights are an excellent use case for blockchains and for Web3. And in fact, we've been recording property rights for a long time. This is the Code of Hammurabi. This is the first evidence we have of societies actually recording down property rights and the rules around those property rights in something tangible, okay? And so this was 18th century BCE, okay? So about 4,000 years ago, we are still sort of recording property rights the same way, i.e. we're writing them down and then we're enforcing them through violence, right? Or the threat of violence, okay? So this hasn't changed in 4,000 years. But putting property rights, somewhere public and the rules around it somewhere public, pretty good idea, okay? Been around for a while. I really ascribe to the idea that blockchains are here to solve coordination problems. So here is what we're coordinating, okay? What you see here are the 8 use cases of vehicle administration. All of these things the DMV does, okay? The DMV has authority over. Everything from buying a new car from a dealership, to a dealership selling a car to another dealership, to a company financing vehicles, perfecting their liens, making sure their interests are secured. That happens on the title, okay? And then the end of life, right, parting it out, selling it to a salvage yard, that also gets recorded as a title transaction, right? So there are a lot of parties involved in this, right, and a lot needs to be coordinated. And what you're doing, by the way, when you go to the DMV with your title, with all your paperwork, you're proving to the DMV that all the parties are coordinated so that the DMV can approve it, right? You have your bill of sale, you have a lien release letter from the bank and the bank's letterhead. You're proving to the DMV, hey, the bank is coordinated, the dealer is coordinated, we did this transaction, just approve it, okay? It's all a coordination problem. This is a highly tangible use case. Almost everyone drives a car. So if we're talking about how do we bring Web3 and blockchain to the masses, what's a killer app, what's something that will make people believe in this tech, I think this is a pretty good place to start, all right? Because this affects everybody. And it creates massive inefficiency. None of us want to go into the DMV, right? We all want this to be better. This is a highly tangible use case, and therefore I think it's a great use case that can prove out our value proposition as blockchain, as Web3. If we can replicate this process in smart contracts, which is what we're trying to do, right? And we can give everyone a vehicle title that's digital and or on the blockchain, right? That's a tremendous proof point, I think, for the industry, and there are lots of other government services I think we could apply this to. So I want to talk a little bit about our approach, and I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this because I think you all will be very interested in it. We use a hybrid private and public blockchain solution. Okay, so we use a private blockchain to actually affect the titling, right? So all of the titling that you're going to do, think about filling out the bill of sale, think about getting the lien release, right? That all is going to happen on a private blockchain because there's a lot of PII flying around in this process. And I don't think we want to have that on a public chain, but we do want to be able to verify that it happened, right, if we're in that network. The way that the DMV works today, right, you have to be a registered dealership with the DMV in order to sell a car. So that's an example of permissioning that needs to occur in this use case. Now, once the DMV approves the title package, right, we will create a public blockchain asset, an NFT. Right now we're using Base, okay, and we put that NFT on Base, that becomes an RWA that can interact with other Web3 dApps and applications, okay? And then we have built some tech with hash time-like contracts, or like a bridge between the private and public networks so that they are atomically in sync, okay? So if you see something on the public network, it means it was approved by a DMV on the private network. And if you need to, you can verify that. We use this model to get direct attestation from all of the parties, right? So rather than you having to go into the DMV and have collected all the paperwork from the lender, from the dealer, et cetera, these parties now run a node on the private network and they can directly attest to what they did within the titling transaction. So the lender can directly attest to the DMV, hey, I released the lien on this vehicle. The dealer can directly attest, yes, I sold the vehicle to Shahar, right? So that gives you a really great, it means you don't have to go to the DMV. It gives you a direct way, to interact without having to leave your home, right? And it's very accountable, transparent, and verifiable. Another thing that we're doing, which I'm actually very excited about with my background in government, is we're actually providing this for free for the government. We're telling state governments, we will give you this software for free. You don't have to procure it. You don't have to do an RFP. Normally how this works, for those that have had the fortune not to have to interact with it, is the government, when they want to do a procurement, they issue what's called a request for proposal to make sure it's fair. All of these contractors can bid on it. That process takes months to years, okay? And then they make a decision. They locked into a single vendor, right? They write a 8-9-figure check sometimes, right? And then they're stuck with that vendor. And then anytime they want to change something in that system, they have to go to that vendor. And this is how you wind up with government contracts and government systems becoming increasingly kludgy and costly, and they don't actually work very well. In our case, our model is actually let the end users pay, right? The dealers, the lenders, they have tremendous pain points around paper titling. So why don't they pay? They're actually begging to pay, right? So we'll give it to the state government for free, we'll upgrade it for free, right? And the end users pay, that creates great incentive alignment, right? Because now we're incentivized to provide the best service. There's no vendor lock-in for the end users, right? And everything is great. We're incentivized to make the service better for the government for free. So, and I think this goes to a goal, and I put for all of us as a question mark, because I think, this is something we all want, right? We want to showcase a model for a new type of government service, one that is underlied by this technology, one that is transparent and accountable and verifiable to the people who are paying for it, the taxpayers, all of us, right? Something that's really a public good, a public utility. I think that's how these things should work. There are tremendous implications to having a vehicle title as an RWA. I'm going to be very quick about this, but we can get, if we want to have a programmable asset future, we need these types of RWAs. We want to have a digital property rights layer, right, that's on blockchain, right, that we can help unlock that, and a digital government services layer. As I was saying earlier, I think this is what government services can and should be: accountable, transparent, and and with maximal incentive alignment. Okay, now I have some bad news. Everything I just talked about is pretty unlikely to happen. Okay, and I should say it won't happen unless we make it happen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the DMV. Okay, DMVs have a reputation for a reason, and and I've met lots of DMV employees that are great. Okay, but nobody joins the DMV to innovate. Okay, it's just not how it works. So, unfortunately, the DMV's sort of status quo point of view of this is that well, let me start with, digital titling is happening, right? The DMVs know that this system sucks. The dealers have been saying, and the lenders have been saying this system sucks for a long time. E-titling will happen, but it might not happen the way we want. And it actually, in the current status quo, it is not happening the way that I think any of us want. The DMV's point of view is that the new e-title is just going to be data in their database, right? It's just going to be an entry in their centralized database. You'll be able to access it if you log into the DMV, but you will in fact lose your paper title. You'll lose your bearer asset title, okay? And all of these things will go away, and you won't have an RWA. I always assumed, I've been working on this for 2.5 years, always assumed that someone would do this, even if we failed, someone would do this eventually. It just makes so much sense. But then I had a meeting, actually last year, with the head of there's an organization called the American Association for Motor Vehicle Administrators. This is like the DMV trade association. They throw conferences. I don't recommend going to them, but I go to all of them. And they hired a guy to do a 2-year study of e-titling. And I met with this guy, and he basically told me this to my face. He said, the way that we're currently thinking about it, the title will just be data in the database, and you won't get any of this. And that was a real wake-up call for me, like, holy shit, we need to make this happen. And the window of opportunity is now, okay? Because once DMVs pay to change their systems, they're not going to do it again for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, really. Okay, so we have a critical window right now to get this done, and we have to make it so. It's not going to happen by itself. So what we're doing to change this, we're making the case for the digital title asset and the importance of having a digital title. I go around, I show on my phone a digital title pass that's like a Web 2 version, right? I talk about the Web 3 use cases that will happen, right? And I think it's starting to work, cautiously, right? I will say, DMVs, state legislatures that I talk to, they get it, right? They get that there needs to be this future innovation unlock, right? And that we'll really miss a big opportunity, and that it's important to maintain the bearer asset quality of the title. Okay, it's important for people to maintain that. So that's starting to work, I think. We are also working with partners in Web3. A good example is a company called Demo. They do vehicle telematics data. We're exploring how we can connect their telematics data asset to our title asset. And now when you transfer your vehicle, when you sell your car, you also sell the driving history of the car, the rights to the data for the car. All of that comes together. What does that do for the used car market, right? That's transformational. So, but I can talk about these use cases all day long to legislators, to DMVs. It's a whole nother thing to be able to show them. So my ask for everyone here, if you're building something that you think could benefit from a vehicle title as an RWA, let's do a proof of concept, right? Let's do something where I can show these legislators that this is real, okay? We are digitizing titles today. So we have a URL, digitisemytitle.us. You can go to it, upload a picture of your title, we OCR it, we'll create you an NFT on base. You'll be one of the first people with an NFT, and we'll know who you are. We'll reward you later, hopefully, right? So please do that. You probably don't have your title with you right now.
That was our friend.
And here are the
Shahar
QR codes
Abrams.
you can go to if you want to help. Thank you.
Please give him a
you.
hand.